Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anthony Walker, and today I'll be presenting my capstone project titled Language Barriers and Latinx Students in Higher Education. When I use the term Latinx, I'm referring to students of Latin American origin or heritage using a gender inclusive term that includes Latinos and Latinas and non binary identities. My study focuses on California Hispanic Serving Institutions, also known as HSI, and examines how language barriers shape Latinx students' access, participation, and retention. I use the psychosocial cultural or PSC model to analyze how these barriers affect students psychologically, socially, and culturally. Today, I'll walk you through key findings, institutional patterns, and recommendations for improving language equity across Hispanic serving institutions. So, now I'd like to focus on the agenda for today. This is the roadmap. I'll start explaining why Latinx enrollment trends matter and how language barriers continue to affect the students. Then I'll introduce the PSC framework that guides this analysis. After that, I'll summarize key themes from the literature, present findings from the California HSI case study, and walk through specific recommendations for institutions. Finally, I'll close with a broader implications for equity and student success. Now we'd like to focus on the context, Latinx enrollment, and equity. Latinx students are the fastest growing demographic in the U.S. higher education. In 2024, they represented nearly 19% of all undergraduate enrollment nationwide. California plays an especially important role. Its HSI enrollment over 2 million Latinx students, which is nearly half of the entire country's Latinx college population. But even though enrollment has increased, equitable outcomes have not. Many students still struggle with English only advising, course material, financial aid instructions, and campus communication. These barriers are structural, not the fault of the students, and they shape every stage of the college journey. Now I'd like to focus on the PSC framework, psychosocial cultural. This PSC model helps us understand student success beyond academics. The psychological dimension deals with confidence, clarity, and emotional well being. The social dimension includes relationship, advising, networks, and sense of belonging. The cultural dimension involves identifying language and how well the institution affirms students' background. A key feature of PSC is that these dimensions overlap. For example, if a student can't understand advising instructions because they are only in English, their psychological clarity drops, their social support suffers, and they may feel culturally out of place. The PSC model allows us to interpret language barriers in a holistic and interconnected way. Now I'd like to focus on what we know. The literature consistently shows that language barriers are created by institutional structures, not student deficits. Researchers such as Garcia and Kelfagen note that English only communication, everything from syllabus to financial aid letters, creates unnecessary obstacles for the students. Studies by Monterio and colleagues show that unclear advising is one of the strongest predictors of course withdrawals and stopouts. Stopouts, to be clear, is when someone decides that they no longer wants to attend their degree. They want to pursue a career in the workforce and just stop school completely. Burgo's work highlights how cultural mismatches in Spanish courses can make heritage speakers feel that their home language is incorrect. And mental health research shows that students avoid counseling when sessions aren't culturally and linguistically accessible. Across the board, the research agrees improving bilingual services directly increases students' confidence and retention and engagement. Now I'd like to focus on the advising and academic navigation. Advising is one of the most critical pressure points. First generation Latinx students rely heavily on advisors because their families often can't interpret college systems. When advising materials are only in English or filled with technical academic language, students misunderstand the degree requirements. Uh, for instance, in a study with Montario, they found multiple cases where students unintentionally enrolled in the wrong courses, repeated classes they didn't need, or missed deadlines because they couldn't interpret English only emails. Institutions with bilingual advising, however, reported stronger retention and higher levels of self fallacy. So now we focus on mental health, belongings, and cultural fit. Language barriers also show up in mental health. Newberry and colleagues reported that many Latinx students avoided counseling because they felt therapists would not understand their culture or because they felt embarrassed translating their emotions into English. Cultural mismatch appears in classrooms too. Burgos' research shows that heritage Spanish speakers feel judged when professors correct their dialects. This harms their cultural identity, reduces participation, and makes them feel academically illegitimate. These layers, mental health and cultural mismatch, illustrate how social and cultural PSC dimensions are intertwined. So now we like to bring more attention to the case study involving the California higher education institutions. In this case study, I found dramatic differences between HSI. Some campuses provide Spanish language orientation sessions, multilingual tutoring labs, and bilingual peer mentors. Fresno State's Spanish language familiar orientation is a great example. It increases confidence because families understand how to support their students. However, many HSIs offer inconsistent or poor quality support. Some rely on Google Translate for official forms. Others have only one bilingual advisor for thousands of students, and many do not update their translated materials. These gaps create unpredictability and increase student stress. So you're probably saying why structural reform is needed. The important insight is that a campus can feel socially welcoming while still being structurally inaccessible. Students may get along with peers and professionals, but still can't interpret degree audits or financial aid forms. Leadership plays a major role. Some universities hire diversity officers or bilingual staff, but many of those positions do not have authority or adequate funding. This leads to fragmentation, strong support in one office and no support in another. STEM departments add another layer. Faculty sometimes equate English proficiency with academic readiness. For example, a bilingual engineer student may understand the math perfectly, but struggle with highly technical English. That linguistic barrier, not a lack of ability, affects their opportunities and confidence. So, after conducting our analysis, we were able to gather a few recommendations. Um, I recommended that campuses institutionalize language access work through dedicated language access offices. These offices should manage translation, monitor communication quality, and train staff. Next, institutions should simplify academic language. Many forms use unnecessary jargon. Even native speakers struggle with it. Step by step guides and bilingual walkthrough sessions would dramatically reduce confusion. Family engagement is also essential. Many first generation students rely on family, but families often don't understand the college terminology. Ongoing Spanish language family academics, not one-time orientations would help. Partnerships with local Latinx cultural groups. Um, kindergarten through 12th grade schools, strengthening support networks. Finally, institutions must bring Latinx students into the decision-making processes. They know exactly where the barriers exist. So I believe that these, these recommendations combined would create a smoother experience for the students down the road. Okay, so we have graduated to the end. In conclusion, language barriers are not just communication problems. They are structural issues that affect students psychologically, socially, and culturally. The PSC model shows how these layers interact and compound. California HSIs demonstrate that progress is possible, but widespread gaps remain. To truly serve Latinx students, college must embed language accessibility into their systems rather than treating it as an optional service. Ultimately, equity depends on whether institutions choose to redesign their structures to match the needs of the community they serve. If we can come together and identify these issues early and incorporate them in our planning, students such as the Latinx students will have a better chance at succeeding in school. This is the end. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to listen to my capstone. I really appreciate it. I really hope you enjoyed what I've learned so far throughout this course. Definitely a lot of work has been put in just trying to figure out the ins and outs of what language barriers consist of when it comes to these students. And, in the future, I hope that something like this is being taken place in the real world where people can, strive to improve that, because I feel like in my case, I was a first year generation student and I didn't get any help. I didn't have the language barrier, but I felt like I was very unprepared for school when I first went to college. I feel like I could have definitely did a lot better if I had the support system to help me, power through everything. But it's definitely made me who I am today. So I wouldn't change it for the world. But I just realized, doing this capstone course and doing this project, what things are out there, what resources are out there to help people, not necessarily hold their hand, but give them a better platform to grow from. And that would help out a lot where they don't feel the need to even have a thought of quitting or whatever the case may be. Have more confidence in what they're trying to do. Everyone needs that, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, thank you again for listening to my presentation.